There is something profoundly comforting about the image of a rock. It brings to mind steadfastness and strength, a solid presence that withstands harsh winds, rain, and storms. For centuries, people of faith have turned to the concept of God as a rock, finding solace in the promise of divine stability that transcends human frailty. The metaphor of God as a rock appears repeatedly in sacred texts and sermons, echoing across generations and providing spiritual reassurance to hearts weighed down by doubt and fear. This enduring image suggests that our Creator is unmovable by the vicissitudes of life. Whether we are burdened by grief, weighed down by anxiety, or simply facing the daily challenges of routine existence, the notion of God as an unshakable foundation can anchor our souls in hope. For many, the journey toward faith begins with a desire for reassurance. We search for certainty in a shifting landscape where the unexpected often happens, and we yearn for a point of reference that remains stable when everything else seems to be changing. The ancient psalmists described God as a fortress and a rock, illustrating the safety that comes from trusting in one who is mightier than any human construction. This image reverberates through scripture and tradition, offering believers the conviction that they are held securely by the presence of a divine creator who does not waver. In our modern world, the longing for steadfastness continues. The pressures of daily life, the pace of technology, and the relentless surge of obligations can leave individuals adrift, isolated, or overwhelmed. The idea that there is an eternal, unchanging reality capable of providing refuge in times of turmoil is both a comfort and a reminder that human efforts, while valuable, are limited. When we acknowledge our own limitations and surrender to the power of a loving Creator, we discover a liberating recognition that we do not have to navigate life alone. There is an invitation to rest upon divine strength, to find shelter in the immovable rock. This reflection invites a deeper understanding of the ways in which God can be recognized as our rock in every corner of existence. We shall explore how this metaphor illuminates the human experience, from our battles with personal trials to the larger collective quests for justice, mercy, and compassion. The purpose is not merely to paint God as a distant fortress. Instead, by delving into this rich imagery, we may find that God, as our rock, is intimately entwined with our daily joys and struggles, guiding us toward greater resilience and love. Ultimately, this exploration will reveal that to embrace God as our rock is not to reject the trials and complexities of life, but rather to stand firmly amidst them, trusting that beneath all we endure, there is a foundation that cannot be shaken. When we speak of God as a rock, we invoke an image of permanence that stands in contrast to the transient nature of our human journey. We navigate a world that is perpetually in flux. Our relationships evolve, our priorities shift, and our bodies change with time. Even the physical landscapes around us are subject to alteration, shaped by seasons and natural forces. In such a dynamic setting, longing for something unchanging is natural. Throughout the ages, believers have found that longing fulfilled in the assurance that God remains the same. This is not to deny the diversity of divine manifestations. Rather, it is to assert that the essence of the Creator's nature is stable, faithful, and consistently loving, regardless of external circumstances. That comforting certainty echoes in the prayers and songs of countless believers. It was present in the ancient Hebrew Psalms, where the writers called upon the Lord as their rock and fortress, seeking protection from their enemies. Those prayers were not only about physical danger, but also encompassed the inner struggles of the heart. Today, individuals read the same Psalms and discover that this imagery, though centuries old, still resonates with profound meaning. The notion of taking refuge in a rock suggests a secure hiding place, one that no storm can erode. In a metaphorical sense, it reminds us that when we face personal challenges, whether emotional turmoil, mental distress, financial hardship, or relational conflict, we can lean on an unchanging source of strength. Calling upon God in our times of need often becomes the clearest moment in which we realize the depth of divine faithfulness. When the noise of everyday life quotes, or when we find ourselves at the edge of our endurance, we begin to perceive that there is a greater power upholding us. This realization may come through prayer, where we pour out our anxieties and fears, or it may dawn in a moment of stillness, where we sense a gentle assurance that we are not alone. The rock-like presence of God is not always loud or dramatic. It can be a subtle, grounding awareness that in the midst of chaos, there is a foundation that holds firm. This foundation speaks to the way we can anchor our identity and worth in something more enduring than our shifting achievements or failures. Society often teaches us to derive our sense of self from what we accomplish or how others perceive us. Such an approach leaves us vulnerable to insecurity whenever success eludes us or when we encounter rejection. By contrast, viewing God as our rock suggests that our truest identity is rooted in the unwavering love of a Creator who sees beyond our flaws and failures. We are valued not for our latest triumph or our ability to please others, but because we are cherished by one who is eternally steadfast. This understanding provides a sense of freedom and peace. We can aspire to grow, to learn, and to fulfill our responsibilities diligently, all while knowing that our ultimate worth rests on a foundation that does not shift with public opinion or worldly measures of success. Embracing God as a rock also inspires reverence. There's a palpable sense of awe when we consider the immensity and stability of God's being. Just as a towering mountain can take our breath away, reminding us of the majesty of nature, so too does the divine presence remind us of our place in the vast expanse of creation. We are invited to marvel, to contemplate, and to worship a source of power that is both intimately near and immeasurably beyond our complete understanding. Through such reverence, we develop humility, acknowledging that our personal strength, though valuable, is not all-encompassing. We learn to appreciate that the power we often attribute to ourselves ultimately originates from the Creator of all things. This posture of humility does not diminish us. Instead, it aligns us with the reality that we are created beings, capable of great creativity and resilience, but also finite in our reach. When we recognize our dependence on the one who does not depend on anything else, we are set free from the illusion that we must carry every burden on our own. We see the beauty in trusting a foundation that has stood before us and will stand long after we are gone. It becomes an act of surrender that is paradoxically empowering, for in laying down our pride, we gain a deeper sense of purpose and belonging. Living in the knowledge that God is our rock reshapes how we respond to trials. Hardship is an inevitable aspect of human existence. Loss, disappointment, betrayal, and uncertainty all form part of the landscape of life. Yet the presence of adversity does not annul our faith. In fact, it can refine and deepen it. When we trust that our ultimate security rests on a foundation beyond our control, we can confront challenges with a sense of calm that defies explanation. This does not mean that we are immune to pain or grief. Rather, it suggests that in the midst of these experiences, there is a deeper confidence that we will not be utterly swept away. In the face of financial struggles, for example, we might feel cornered by fear or despair. But if we remember that we stand upon a rock that transcends economic fluctuations, we can approach even the driest circumstances with hope. We do our part, working diligently, seeking help when needed, and making wise decisions where possible. Yet we do so with an overarching conviction that God's care is not limited by the constraints of our immediate situation. The same principle applies to emotional or relational conflicts. Leaning on God does not magically remove all pain. Instead, it situates us within a broader perspective, reminding us that even in the darkest night of suffering, we are held by a love that does not falter. This perspective can also encourage compassion. When we realize that the foundation we rely on is available to all, we feel propelled to share hope with others. Our knowledge of God as a rock does not remain a private refuge. It becomes a catalyst for empathy, spurring us to alleviate the burdens of those around us. We cannot fully exemplify God's steadfastness in our own strength, but we can reflect some measure of the care we have received. By reaching out to our neighbors, offering them support, and extending mercy, we participate in the wider work of revealing divine faithfulness in tangible ways. This invitation to reflect divine stability leads us to consider the relational dimensions of our faith. The idea of God as a rock emphasizes steadfastness and safety, yet it also calls us to engage actively with the world. It is easy to imagine that dwelling in the shelter of a rock means isolating ourselves from others. However, this imagery does not prompt us to retreat from the world. Instead, it prepares us to stand firm within it. We are secured, not sequestered. We can act with courage and generosity, knowing that our place of refuge is never far away, even when we step into places of risk, service, or social engagement. This approach can reshape entire communities, faith communities that collectively acknowledge God as their rock can serve as havens of stability in uncertain times. They can demonstrate unity by caring for one another, resolving conflicts in a spirit of reconciliation, and offering hospitality to those in need. While human institutions are never perfect, they can still reflect the unshakable love of their Creator. Such communities become beacons of hope, illustrating to a fragmented world that there is a deeper foundation than mere human effort. Trust in God as our rock also influences how we view the concept of justice and mercy. The unwavering nature of the divine calls us to live in ways that honor that same unchanging goodness. We come face to face with the reality that if God's character is steadfast, then our commitment to righteousness should be equally resolute. This does not imply perfection, but rather a continual pursuit of what is right, anchored in a foundational belief that God's ways are enduring. When injustice arises, or when we witness wrongdoing in our societies, the image of God as a rock can embolden us to stand for truth and compassion. We are not tossed about by the shifting trends of public opinion, because our moral compass is connected to an eternal source of love and holiness. Living this way is not always simple, because it may require us to confront uncomfortable truths or stand against popular opinion. Yet when we remember that our security does not come from pleasing the crowd, but from resting in the unchanging nature of God, we find the courage to remain steadfast. We discover that divine strength can underpin our collective pursuit of justice, supporting us through resistance and challenges. We do not rely solely on our finite resources, but trust that the one who is a rock stands with us in every endeavor that fosters healing, reconciliation, and dignity. When we speak about God in such a personal and empowering way, it is important to remember that this is not a simplistic solution to the complexities of existence. Life can still be messy and fraught with questions that lack easy answers. Yet the comfort of knowing God as our rock is that we are grounded in a larger narrative. Our hardships and doubts do not isolate us in a void, but instead unfold in the context of a divine story that began long before us and will continue beyond us. This awareness lends meaning to our struggles. It reminds us that our pain is neither wasted nor overlooked. Through these trials, we grow in empathy and understanding, learning to trust more deeply in the one who stands firm. In seasons of heartbreak, our faith can reveal new facets of divine compassion. In times of joy, we can celebrate from a vantage point of gratitude, recognizing that every blessing ultimately finds its origin in a steadfast and loving Creator. Even when we stumble, when our faith feels weak or our hope wavers, the rock remains. Our emotional fluctuations do not shift the foundation beneath us. That constancy is a powerful testament to the nature of God, underscoring that divine mercy abides despite our imperfections. Such constancy has led countless individuals throughout history to testify that even when circumstances were dire, their trust was not in vain. In every era and corner of the globe, believers have stood firm on the promise that God is their refuge. They have weathered persecutions, endured losses, and faced monumental challenges, yet retained a profound sense of peace and purpose. This strength was not their own invention. They drew it from a wellspring of divine grace that remains available to every generation. Their stories remind us that we too can find the resilience to face adversity, for we are sustained by the same rock-like presence that sustained them. In practical terms, embracing God as our rock might look like beginning and ending the day with a prayer acknowledging our reliance on divine guidance. It could involve quiet moments of reflection, where we rest from our anxieties and recalibrate our perspective around the notion that ultimate security flows from something greater than ourselves. It might spur us to read sacred writings that highlight the character of God, reminding us that we are supported by a love that we cannot fully comprehend. It might also guide our interactions, prompting us to display patience, to offer a listening ear, and to bear witness to the power of unwavering compassion. Gradually, this understanding shapes our internal landscape. Instead of being dominated by fear or discouragement when we encounter obstacles, we grow accustomed to turning toward the one in whom we place our trust. This might not eliminate all difficulties, but it infuses us with hope. Just as a traveler in a mountainous region feels safer clinging to a solid cliff face than scrambling across loose gravel, we feel a sense of security by anchoring our spirits to an unchanging rock. And just as that traveler must keep moving along the path, we do not remain static in our faith journey. We move forward, guided by the assurance that even when the way is steep or uncertain, our spiritual footing is secure. Furthermore, Viewing God as a rock does not diminish the gentle, nurturing aspects of the divine. Some might worry that the image of a rock implies cold distance or unfeeling hardness. However, when we interpret this metaphor within the broader context of divine love, we see that God's unshakable nature coexists with deep compassion. The rock is not merely a barrier, it is also a sanctuary, a place where we can find rest and renewal. This assurance of safety allows us to explore our emotional depths, to process our grief, and to celebrate our joys in the presence of one who remains lovingly constant. Over time, we come to realize that our faith is not an isolated domain of the heart, but a living lens that shapes how we see every part of life. Embracing God as our rock can transform our approach to work, relationships, social issues, and personal growth. We begin to seek divine wisdom in decision-making, grounded in the confidence that the guidance we receive is rooted in steadfast truth. We learn to extend forgiveness more readily, mindful of the mercy we have received from a God who never turns away. We aspire to fairness and integrity, remembering that our rock is also a foundation of righteousness. In doing so, our lives become more aligned with the one we call our refuge. Through this alignment, we participate in the shared work of healing and restoration that takes place in communities of faith. Even as individuals, we carry the influence of divine stability wherever we go. We become conduits of peace in conflict environments, bearing witness to the possibility that love can prevail over division. We offer a helping hand to those whose footing feels uncertain, inviting them to stand upon the same solid ground that has supported us in difficult times. In this way, the image of God as a rock transcends metaphor and becomes a lived reality, manifested in acts of compassion, mercy, and justice. Eventually, we discover that we cannot exhaust the depths of this metaphor. Each new season of life reveals another dimension of God's immovability, another instance where the rock-like presence of the Creator surpasses our fears and expectations. This journey of continual revelation is part of what makes faith an ongoing adventure. We may begin with a tentative hope, only to learn through personal experience that the one we trust truly does hold us secure, even when the weight of the world seems overpowering. Such growth in faith does not lead to arrogance. Instead, it fosters gratitude. We realize that we are privileged to stand on holy ground, supported by a foundation that is far stronger than our doubts or frailties. This gratitude, in turn, motivates us to express love more authentically, to worship more sincerely, and to serve more wholeheartedly. It is the cyclical nature of a living faith. As we receive, we give. As we trust, we act. As we stand upon the rock, we reach out a hand to help others find their footing. To speak of God as our rock is to speak of a divine refuge that holds us through every storm, every trial, and every uncertainty. This image captures the longing of the human heart for a steady presence in a constantly shifting world. It affirms the hope that there is a Creator who does not waver with time or circumstance, and whose nature is forever faithful. The invitation to each of us is to explore this assurance for ourselves, to lean into the strong foundation that underpins reality, and to discover that in our vulnerabilities and questions, we are met by a source of unyielding love. When we accept God as our rock, we open ourselves to a transformation of outlook and character. We learn to navigate hardships without losing hope, recognizing that there is a deeper undercurrent of divine provision woven into the fabric of life. we approach daily tasks with renewed purpose, knowing that our worth is secured in a higher truth that does not ebb and flow with the changing tides of worldly success. We engage in relationships with greater empathy, extending kindness and support from the endless well of compassion that emanates from the divine. Though the path of faith is never immune to doubts or trials, it is precisely during these moments that the metaphor of God as our rock reveals its most profound beauty. In confusion, we find clarity in divine constancy. In despair, we find hope in the certainty of divine care. In solitude, we find companionship in the ever-present nature of our spiritual foundation. These experiences gently remind us that faith is not about escaping the realities of life, but about being firmly rooted in a truth that can endure them. May the image of God as our rock serve as a guiding beacon that draws us closer to the heart of divine love. May it encourage us to seek justice and show compassion, mirroring the steadfast character of the one who upholds us. May it spark within us a deeper reverence and a humble acknowledgement of our own limitations, leading us to trust that the power sustaining us is greater than our fears. Finally, may this enduring truth inspire us to open our hearts, minds, and hands in service to one another, that we might collectively stand firm upon the rock of God's unshakable presence. In all these ways, acknowledging God as our rock is far more than a distant theological concept. It is a living reality, embraced by those who have found in the Creator an anchor for the soul. Each person's journey will be unique, but the invitation remains the same: to stand in humble awe before the source of unwavering strength, to trust that this rock will never abandon us, and to allow that trust to shape the way we live, love, and serve every day. Let our lives become a testament to the abiding power of God, that others may also be drawn to discover the refuge available to them. In doing so, we join the chorus of those who have gone before us, proclaiming with confidence and gratitude that our God is indeed our rock, unmovable in purpose, inexhaustible in mercy, and forever worthy of our trust.